Alrighty, party peoples of the interwebs, that very famous French actor, Jussie Smollett, is going to walk. Viva Fry, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler. In my home office, my kid is in the park doing some parkour. There's a bit of construction, so you're going to hear some noise. The natural ambiance of life in Florida. But there's an update in the Jussie Smollett trial. He's going to walk because the Illinois Supreme Court just tossed the case. Now, we're not going to go over the entire fact pattern of the Jussie Smollett fake hate crime hoax scandal. Although it involves Kamala Harris, it involves trying to pass legislation to ban modern-day lynching as though lynching was legal. Jussie Smollett faked a hate crime against himself. He filed a false police report. He said two white MAGA supporters attacked him at 2 a.m. in the middle of a winter vortex in Chicago, screaming, "This is MAGA country," put a noose around his neck and poured liquid on his face. And then he went home, kept the noose on his neck, called the police, said he was assaulted by two white MAGA supporters in Chicago at 2 a.m, and it turns out the two white MAGA supporters were the Osundairo brothers from Nigeria who were paid to stage this attack against Jussie Smollett. Oh yeah, paid by Jussie Smollett to stage this fake hate crime against Jussie Smollett. So the news went viral, yada yada yada. Eventually he was charged with filing a false police report or faking the hate crime, whatever, and Kim Foxx, the corrupt district attorney of Chicago, dropped the charges against him, decided not to prosecute. Jussie Smollett forfeited his $10,000 bond, was sentenced to do community service that, from what I recall, he had already done. Why is this important? Because the case was tossed by the Illinois Supreme Court, not because of the double jeopardy rule, but because of a detrimental reliance rule that he had a contract with the corrupt Kim Gardner and that the state now has to respect that corrupt contract.
In a statement, the court said, "Today we resolve a question about the state's responsibility to honor the agreements it makes with defendants. Specifically, we address whether a dismissal of a case by Noel Prosecki allows the state to bring a second prosecution within the dismissal was entered as part of an agreement with the defendant, and the defendant has performed his part of the bargain. We hold that a second prosecution under these circumstances is a due process violation, and we therefore reverse defendant's conviction." To give you a little context here, you may recall that Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx initially dropped the charges against Smollett after striking a deal with him, but then a special prosecutor was appointed who later brought those charges back, leading to Smollett's trial and to his conviction. I'm sure we'll have much more on this all throughout the day.
You will recall that the charges were brought, the charges were dropped, and then a special prosecutor was brought in to charge Jussie Smollett. He was tried and convicted. He was in jail for 6 days, and with this dismissal, he is not going to step foot in jail, at least not for this conviction. But I'm going to go over the highlights from the decision. It's like 30 some odd pages, but there are just a few highlights to really emphasize not the absurdity, but the mental gymnastics that the court went through in order to get to a dismissal, not on the basis of double jeopardy, because double jeopardy never attached, but on the basis of detrimental reliance. They had an agreement, and now the state has to respect that agreement. Paragraph 31, this court explained how cooperation agreements differed from plea agreements. In a plea agreement, the detrimental reliance is the waiver of the right to trial, whereas with a non-prosecution agreement, the defendant's cooperation is sufficient consideration for the government's immunity promise. Moreover, the due process implications in each scenario are different. In the plea agreement scenario, if the defendant has not yet pleaded guilty, he still has the option of going to trial. With a cooperation agreement, the violation of the right not to be hailed into court is what denies the defendant due process. This court further explained that cooperation agreements are analyzed under contract principles and that the principle of enforcing them is the due process clause of the 14th Amendment. Paragraph 33, if the defendant is correct that the initial charges were dismissed as part of an agreement with the state in which he fully performed his end of the agreement, the above authorities would support enforcing the agreement. Therefore, we proceed to consider the following three questions. First, was the Nolle Prosecki entered because of an agreement between the parties? Second, if so, what were the terms of the agreement and the intentions of the parties? And third, what was the legal effect of the agreement? And in the soothing voice of Morgan Freeman, yes, they will come to the conclusion that the Nolle Prosecki, which means do not prosecute, was part of an agreement that must be respected.
Let's take a pause from this vlog to thank our sponsor. The deep state strikes back with a clear message to create nuclear war as Trump transitions into office. Now we know why the celebrities were building bunkers. It's confirmed NATO fires missiles into Russian territory, forcing Putin to the brink of nuclear war. We haven't been this close to World War III since the Cuban Missile Crisis. If global disaster strikes, are you prepared? 90% of medications come come from overseas, you need to cover your bases for your family's medical needs and prepare for any type of medical catastrophe, and the wellness company's emergency kits are your best defense against the unexpected. Packed with life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pax, amoxicillin, and more, these kits combat bacterial infections, staph, bite wounds, UTIs, strep throat, and respiratory illnesses. Each kit includes their medical board-approved guidebook that walks you through how to treat different medical emergencies. Ordering your prescription emergency kit is easy and fully digital. Answer a couple of questions after checkout and your kit is delivered to your front door. Don't wait until disaster strikes. Act now, get prepped for life's emergencies, and live with confidence in these uncertain times. Kits are only available in the United States. Head over to twc.health/Viva. Use promo code Viva. Get $40 off and free shipping. That is twc.health/Viva. Promo code Viva for $40 off and free shipping. And now back to the vlog.
Paragraph 39. The basic terms of the agreement are clear from the statement the Assistant State's Attorney read on March 26, 2019. Community service and bond forfeiture on defendant's part and dismissal of the charges on the state's part. The complete terms of the agreement are set out in more detail in the OSP's summary report of its findings and are virtually identical to those set forth in the OMP's information release. We don't need to go over the details, but the bottom line, the agreement was that the state would not prosecute, nolle prosequi, and in exchange for that non-prosecution, Jussie Smollett would forfeit his $10,000 bond and perform community service, and the court comes to the conclusion he respected his end of the agreement, and therefore the state must now respect its end of the agreement. Paragraph 45, finally, it defies credulity to believe that defendant would agree to forfeit $10,000 with the understanding that the CCSAO could simply re-indict him the following day. And the conclusion, the state is bound by the agreement. Paragraph 48, because the charges were dismissed in exchange for defendant's community service and forfeiture of his bail bond, and because defendant fully performed his end of the agreement, the state is bound by the agreement. And at the end, just to quell the concerns that some might have that justice was not in fact duly served in this case in which Jussie Smollett basically tried to start a race war in America, the court has to add a couple of final paragraphs just to soothe everyone's concern. Conclusion, paragraph 68. We are aware that this case has generated significant public interest and that many people were dissatisfied with the resolution of the original case and believed it to be unjust. Nevertheless, what would be more unjust than the resolution of any one criminal case would be a holding from this court that the state was not bound to honor agreements upon which people have detrimentally relied, as the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania recently stated when enforcing a prosecutorial promise not to prosecute. Quote, it cannot be gainsaid that society holds a strong interest in the prosecution of crimes. It is also true that no such interest, however important, ever can eclipse society's interest in ensuring that the constitutional rights of the people are vindicated. Society's interest in prosecution does not displace the remedy due to constitutionally aggrieved persons. And they're citing from the Bill Cosby case.
Bill Cosby, once again, a free man, a former actor and comedian, arrived back home after Pennsylvania's highest court overturned his sex assault conviction.
After a stunning court reversal, Bill Cosby has been released from prison. Pennsylvania's highest court overturned the 83-year-old sexual assault conviction on a technicality.
He was not found not guilty. He was not now innocent.
But Pennsylvania Supreme Court says Cosby should never have been charged because a former district attorney made a deal with the comedian. In exchange for testimony in a civil case brought by Constan, Cosby would not face criminal charges.
Bill Cosby relied on that promise. He could not take the Fifth Amendment to say that he could incriminate himself because he was never going to be prosecuted.
And paragraph 69, we reverse the judgment of the appellate court, reverse the judgment of the circuit court, and remand the cause with directions for the circuit court to enter a judgment of dismissal. Judgment reversed. And worth noting that not only does this mean that Jussie Smollett gets to walk free, it also means that he doesn't need to restitute or pay restitution to the city for the cost of their investigation into his fake hate crime. So he skips out on serving time in jail or serving more time in jail because he already served 6 days. He skips out on having to repay the city for the cost of that thing, and he goes on to now say, I was never found guilty of lying, and therefore I'm still innocent and the victim of a hate crime perpetrated by 2 white MAGA supporters who actually were 2 black Nigerian men.
We were the ones that did it. Yeah. It was us.
And if you think that's ridiculous, I think it's ridiculous that you haven't taken 5 seconds to go hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, drop a comment in the comment section below. If you want to support the work that we do, vivabarneslaw.locals.com, Viva Fry on Rumble, the Viva Fry on Twitter. More important than anything, exercise, eat healthy, sunlight, vitamin D. I'm getting it right now. Talk to people in real life, and now you know your vlog. Peace out, peeps. Booyah!
Jussie Smollett is an actor from France. And he became famous on a show called Empire.